This is out of the mold. This is the piece we were just playing with in our class. As you can see, we got a very nice smooth surface. Maybe a little too smooth actually for what we were doing. We used some rose-colored tint to the original concrete here, and a little bit of white. It was very narrow. We did put plenty of scrim in it, but we still cracked when we took it out of this. This was really just too small. This has a knockout in it. It's very fragile in this area and this area. Several things we could do differently. If you're doing a piece like this, you can run a reinforcement through here, a piece of 1/4 inch steel on either side of this, and an angle here, here, and here would help quite a bit. B, you could just simply put a seam in it right through the center here and have two separate pieces, which would take all the stress off of that. The seam you wind on a small piece like this, I normally wouldn't seam it, but this is very narrow and we had a large sink, and it's difficult. So I would suggest, if you were doing one of these for a customer, that you run a piece of steel through here and through here. This is difficult because we have a foam knockout for the plumbing, so it's a very tight spot. So those are the couple things we need to be concerned with. As you can see, we really came out of the mold pretty nice. Now it picked up when we marked this thing out the Sharpie mark right off of the mold itself. That's nothing to be concerned about. That sands. You can just take a palm sander. Just comes right off with a little bit of elbow grease. And it disappears. I normally, before I grout, run over the whole thing lightly with a palm sander. It just kind of opens up any pores that you don't see. And you can just open it up just like this. See the difference right there. Now then, we were trying a little bit of the hand press method. Some of it came out rather well, some of it not so well. One reason was the mud was maybe just slightly wet. We rushed this just a little bit. It was a little wet. And the other thing is when it's pressed into the mold, it's pressed a little too hard. When you're putting this in, you just barely want to just get it where it presses together. This area here shows it a little wet, pressed too much, so you don't get hardly any veining. It's rather, difficult to see. This is more what you're looking for right through here. You've got bigger veins. They're irregular. They're fairly well defined. You can see those. Those are going to grout really well. When we just sand this, we pull some pinholes up. That's to be expected. Grout takes care of that. A little bit of slurry will take care of that. We've got a little bit here and there because we pressed this in, we poured this. We tried several different things in the class. Not bad, actually. We're going to go ahead and mix up just a little bit of grout. We're going to rub over and grout this area here. I think, what is it, brown grout that we're using? We're going to mix some deep brown grout, which should contrast this rather well. And we're going to rub this over it and let it dry for a bit. And then you can sand it or grind it off. And that will leave those veins, that'll accentuate these veins, and the contrasting color should look pretty good. The brown with this kind of rose-colored Abiquiu, New Mexico sand looking almost kind of color. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of this. It's very scientific. You get a little dab of this. This is the one-time smooth mix overlay. This is the gray. We're just going to take a little bit and drop in there. A little dab of water and a little dab of Now, if we were going to match something, we would obviously measure everything out and set it up. But we're just going for a different color grout. So we're just going to mix it up really good. A little runny right now. And we're going to add a little bit more of this to it. So we're getting a nice, a little thinner than peanut butter, but not tremendously so, kind of mix here. Now then, a little bit of water on this, just not a lot, just a little bit. Concrete always bonds best when both surfaces are wet. Not sopping wet, but at least dampened. Spray bottle works well, cheap spray bottle. Works great for that. We didn't have... Now then, there are all kinds of different ways to put grout on, but for this, the best way to do it is with your hands, and you put it in a circular motion. And you just work it until it fills those. And you just work your way around.
We're doing this for grouting and staining. Is this the same procedure if you were just simply slurring?
Now, if you're slurring, I do the same thing. Exactly. I just run it right over the top. When you're running a slurry, cover the whole piece. And a circular motion, you know, kind of wax on, wax off kind of deal. Some of y'all are old enough to remember the Karate Kid. But I think Ralph Macchio's older than me. But you just keep, and as you circle, you'll notice the holes keep getting smaller and smaller. They just fill right in. If you need a little bit more, add a little bit more. Now then, it'll usually take, with these deep veins, about 2 to 3 coats of slurry of this to actually fill it completely.
Be patient.
Be patient. You scrape it up there a little bit. And look for any kind of little hole you can see and rub till it disappears. And like I said, some of them are so thick that they won't fill to the top immediately. And that's normal, that's to be expected. And you can watch the holes just disappear as you go over this. I occasionally use a piece of foam in my shop after I get at this point and go back over it. Totally forgot to bring one with me. Should have.
Does that just help you push it into that?
It just helps you push it in and it flattens it out. But I originally learned to do it just with my hands. That works it works rather well. And what you're looking for is getting as flat as possible. But you're going to have these little indentations here where it's going to shrink anyway. So you just live with that at this point. Just work your way around. I cover everything when I do one. Then when you polish till it's gone. Got a nice, rich, bronzy, almost chocolate looking piece now.
It's going to be pretty when you sand out some of that extra and a little bit of the rose.
Yeah, I think the colors will contrast real well. You got a place like this where you got a little bit of that. There, you can build it up slightly so that you can get your edge to roll out and look finished. Yeah, it gets knocked off every time I do something like that.
Actually, kind of an interesting, almost looks like a soapstone over here.
And that's kind of a travertine, yeah.
Travertine.
Yeah. And we did hand pack here a little bit, but they pushed really hard. And the harder you push that in, it just flows and spreads out and flattens out. Especially if the mud's just slightly wet. And that's just one of the things that happens. But you're still going to have pretty cool roll that in there. You can see those holes start filling up when you do this. You get a nice fill in those places, go over those. These little edges here. You just kind of build it up, match it up. Let me look down this side real quick. Oh, I did pretty good by doing it by feel. You see, it doesn't take a whole lot of grout. That's the thing. And what's cool about this is when you regrout the second time, you can mix your grout slightly lighter and you'll have another line of different color in there. So you'll get 3 different colors. And on this area here where it's fairly deep, if you take your time, you can put 4 to 5 different colors in that. And all of them will show as little rings around the outside in this area right around here each time you build it up. For a really, really nice look. It's just time consuming. And you know, if you're doing something and you want a really elegant look, you could take and build you a nice edge out of different styles of molding and then hand pack that in there and you get a really antique kind of old world look out of that. So there's lots of things you can do just in application of how you put the mud in the mold and how you grout and what colors you choose. I did a green countertop that we hand packed in. I used 3 different shades of red grout with it. And it looked like bloodstone. It had a real nice, veined, rich look to it. So, you know, there's lots of different things to do. Depending on your taste, what preference you have. Of course, if you have good taste like me, then it's always great, but. Right. We all know better than that. I go back and look at some of my pieces and I go, oh, I can't believe I really thought that looked good. But they looked really good at the time, and everybody was happy. But you come back and you change what you like. Okay. Now rub this down. Now, this needs to set. You can put a plastic bag or some plastic on. This needs to set, generally speaking, overnight for something like this, and then come back and then sand and polish off the top. So it's ready to be left alone for several hours, and then come back and polish it off. And then you can kind of see how it's going to look, and probably another coat of grout as soon as we polish it. Come back and grout this corner with one more, maybe a few other little spots, and let that come back in. And inevitably there'll be a few pinholes after we do this again. When you grind it, you'll show some more. The final batch of grout that I would make, or slurry I would make, would simply be a little dab of polymer, straight Portland, and color. And that'll fill in all the really small pinholes. It'll smooth up little rough patches on top of this grout. It'll fill all those in and bond to those, so you get a real slick finish. And that kind of tops it off and allows that to finish out with a real smooth, clean look. So I think that's about it for right now.